Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are recording on a Thursday night. Now, I have a long weekend coming up. I've got Friday off work and I've got Monday, which is a public holiday. So I'm looking forward to 4 days. I've got all kinds of things I want to do, mostly around learning songs and making a cheap guitar I bought nicer.
Fair enough. I'm off Monday, but I'm not off Friday. You thought farther ahead than I did, Tim.
Yeah, and it's also Hannah and I's wedding anniversary on Sunday.
I mean, that's fair. That means you had extra things you needed to celebrate. So it makes sense you'd need 4 days.
There we are. So yeah, there's a big 4-day weekend coming up.
It's the little things, man.
It is indeed. So anyhow, here at the very top of the show, Joy, I think she has a new segment for us.
So I have decided we need to have more positive things going through our brains and our news cycle and things we see. So instead of, it's not going to be music based. It's just going to be a few little positive stories that came out. When we're recording, I kind of look them up and give you an idea of positive things that happen.
Okay.
So recently I learned of an 8-year-old, and she is so cute in this picture, who needed a heart transplant. She was craving pickles, so one of the hospital chefs came in and taught her how to pickle things while she was in the hospital. So I thought that was super sweet. So basically, she had to hunker down and wait for her procedure. Obviously, she couldn't eat until she had the procedure. You know, if you've ever had major surgery or any minor surgery, you can't eat until it's done. And when she came through, all she wanted was a dill pickle, which I am a lover of pickles. Now, Tim is a hater of cucumbers, but I think you enjoy pickles.
I hate cucumbers are horrifically awful. The smell, the taste, the texture, everything about a cucumber is rancid. Now, as far as pickles go, I would not knowingly eat a pickle, but back in my
Really? I thought you would eat a pickle. I've heard you say you eat pickles.
Back in my McDonald's days, because as you know, I used to love McDonald's food, then I stopped eating meat and I haven't really been back since. If I got a Big Mac or if I got a quarter pounder with cheese, or my favorite, the McRib, that had a pickle in it, I wouldn't take it out.
You actually liked the McRib? I've never met anyone who liked the McRib.
Oh, I used to love the McRib. It's like the first year I lived here. The first year I lived here, I got here in February, and then it's around sort of October, November, the McRib comes back. I was so incredibly excited. They hadn't sold the McRib in the UK for 10, 15 years prior. And the fact that it was now McRib season, I was so pleased.
And the irony is in America, there's like a frozen brand that you can get that's basically the McRib. And when I was in school, they sold us pretty much the McRib without it being with all the like made into a sandwich. It's just like, you know what I mean? The rib part.
Yeah.
Like for us, it was pretty common, but I've never actually met anyone. I knew there were diehard McRib fans, but I've never really talked to one. So this is a first for me, Tim.
Yeah, I used to love the McRib. I mean, it's, mechanically recovered pork pressed into some weird shape, covered in a load of sauce so it could be anything. But something about that flavor, and I said the pickles in there actually add to the crunch. And then the bun has got like some kind of stuff on it. The McRib was fabulous. I mean, me and the McRib had some great times over the last 13 plus years.
If Tim ever has to like give his death row order, it's just going to be like a McRib. Anyway, so for me, Tim, even though like I am like Tim, I'm a non-meat eater anymore. I do occasionally eat like pescatarian, like I'll eat fish, but that's about it. My guilty pleasure was Spam. I liked fried Spam.
Oh, no.
I grew up in the South. It's a delicacy here. I'm sorry. All right, back to the girl making the pickles. So she woke up and she said that that's what she wanted. So the lady, she kind of takes an administrative role in cooking and says she does this a lot. But most of the time when kids come out of anesthesia, when they've had a major surgery, they're always asking for pizza. She said she always gets pizza requests. This is the first pickle request she got. So she taught her how to pickle vegetables. And I thought that was super cute, useful, and, just really nice. I have one more. So recently there has come to light a Walmart deli employee. His name is Dylan Bird, who is actually an Olympic athlete.
Oh,
just
wow.
goes to show you don't know. I feel like everybody just assumes every Olympic athlete is rich. Apparently not. He just headed to the 2024 Olympics in Paris. and he works a full-time job at the deli counter. And I found that super interesting. They interviewed him and talked to him, how does it feel to be back just living your normal life? And he says, it's so interesting because people just don't know who I am. And I thought that was really sweet because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but would you think that there was an Olympian getting your deli meat, Tim?
No, not at all. But the thing is, there's a thing that's been said many times. Like they say, who's the world's greatest guitarist? And people have said, yeah, the world's greatest guitarist is a lawyer, or the world's greatest guitarist is somebody who sweeps the streets or something. Because, it's only the very few that rise to the top who who they are. That Olympian, that person who probably won a medal and, is great in their field, rose up to do that, and then they have to go back to their regular life.
Well, it gets even sweeter. Basically, they said that his work ethic has been unmatched since he was there. He goes above and beyond, and Walmart presented him with a $20,000 check when he was going to the Paris Olympics, so all of his friends and family could afford to go with him.
Well, that's nice.
I thought that was very sweet. As much as some people might hate on Walmart, we don't need to talk about that. It was a very sweet gesture, and I liked it.
There we are, and they got the cynic in me would say they got their public relations boost and they wrote it off against tax, but that is beside the point.
Tim, I need positive right now, so let's move along.
Well, the positive is if that person got their family out to Paris, so look, we can look at it on a positive manner.
All right, Tim, what you got for the people?
Okay, so I have a couple of music news items. So number one, and this is the big story this week. This is a very sad story. Quincy Jones, super producer of Michael Jackson, producer of We Are the World, and also a conductor, orchestra conductor, and also a compose all manner of scores. He did all kinds of stuff in his career. Sadly,
songwriting, and everything in between.
Everything. Sadly, we lost Quincy this week. He was 91 years old. I mean, he's left behind a huge legacy. I said not just in pop music, film scores, orchestras, the amount of stuff that Quincy has done over the years. I mean, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Off the Wall and Bad is what most people know him for.
He produced It's My Party from Leslie Gore. That was like the start of his like nobody talks about. You know what I mean, Tim? I know what you're saying. All these Michael, but he literally did It's My Party for Leslie Gore. So much stuff, and that was what, the 50s?
Yeah, I mean the chap. We lost him at the age of 91. I mean, he's been around a long time and had this long successful career in music.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just like he goes back so much further that people don't even realize. I apologize if I cut you off there, Tim, but that's fine. What I was making a point about. It's like everybody thinks Thriller and Off the Wall, which is what I think initially, but it goes way farther back than that.
Yeah, he was a very interesting chap. He had an interview that he did about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was like he spoke his mind. Some of it was a bit weird. Some of it was
85.
Yeah, some of it was probably not very cool, really. But I go on the internet, and so I think it was Vanity Fair he did it for, and Google it and read it, because this is just like what was on Quincy Jones's mind. And he was talking about all these people he works with, and the interview is like, "Are you sure you want to say this stuff?" And he says, "Look, I'm stinking rich and I'm old and I don't care."
We can only live to be that, Tim, one day.
There was one bit that did make me laugh. It was in the interview, he's talking about how he was friends with Bono from U2. Bono apparently, through the sort of 70s and 80s and 90s even, he said that whenever he went to Ireland to work, Bono would always put him up in his castle, because Bono has a castle in Ireland, obviously. And he insisted that Quincy stayed there, and it was probably an incredibly nice place to stay because Bono said
it's a castle.
Yeah, Bono said that during that time Ireland was very racist, and he said he didn't want there to be any problems. He wanted him to be treated well, and he wanted to put him to the best place he could be, and that was his own home, and he treated him like family and all this kind of stuff. And Quincy goes on this whole thing about how Bono looked after him, and he was so grateful, and he what a gentleman, and looked after my family, all this kind of stuff. And then the interviewer said, "Well, what do you think of U2's new music? Do you like it?" He said, "No, it's terrible."
I mean, you could separate the art from the artist, as me and Tim have said many times on this podcast. God, that'll be me one day. No, it's terrible.
Yeah, it was so funny. I find the interview, read the whole thing because he talks about
Oh,
Michael
Lord.
Jackson. He talks about all manner of people. So, I mean, you assume what he said in this interview is correct, but some of it's really wacky and probably not appropriate. But, just the unfiltered musings of an 80-year-old chap who's been in the industry is an interesting read.
And he's seen a lot. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
All right, what's next, Tim?
Okay, I have one more story. So apparently, are you familiar with iHeartMedia and iHeartRadio?
Yes,
Now, it used to be called Clear Channel. And then
correct.
Clear Channel got into all kinds of problems, PR disasters, and all this kind of stuff. So they changed the name to iHeartRadio and iHeartMedia.
I used to be a big connoisseur.
Yeah, and they really represent probably every commercial radio station in the entire country. They're all sort of this big conglomerate. And it's because of iHeartRadio that if you have one local station and you tune to another local station, all the commercials hit at exactly the same time.
And there'd be like, you'd be listening to a 90s channel at one place, go 3 states over and listen to basically the exact same 90s channel all over again.
Exactly. Well, they are laying people off left, right, and center. They're apparently they're saddled with debt, and they're really struggling with the streaming thing because, I mean, I have never ever tuned in the radio stations in my car. I like NPR, but even like NPR, I listen to the podcast so I can pick and choose the stories I want to listen to. But the thought of like getting in your car and putting FM radio on that's got ads and annoying DJs and all that kind of stuff is not appealing. And I don't think I'm alone with that.
Well, yeah, absolutely, you're not. And the other, like in Charlie, who does put on regular radio, it's the same 10 songs over and over again. So I ended up taking over and putting on something else because I can't listen to it for more than 10 songs. But iHeartRadio, I used to be a big fan. Like I used to listen to iHeartRadio as like where I found my music between like downloading and like fully like accepting YouTube and Spotify. You know what I mean, Tim? Like it was that and it was Groove Shark. I was in the Groove Shark for a minute too. And like iHeartRadio used to be like, I mean, I was really into it, but like it doesn't really share any space now, like even online. Do you know what I mean? Not only is it just like people not listening in their car, like no one's going to iHeartRadio.com to listen to their music anymore. I was at one point, but that's long forgotten.
Yeah, it's a hangover of a forgotten age. It really is. I mean, certainly in the UK and Europe, they've moved into DAB radio, which is digital radio, and it's free to air digital radio. And there's hundreds and hundreds of stations, and it actually is really compressed, and it sounds terrible, but that's beside the point. But FM radio is certainly on a big decline. But here in the United States, we have satellite radio, which is a separate thing. But we have FM AM radio, and probably will to the end of time. But I don't know, the thought of like getting in your car and putting FM radio on and putting on 96.3 ROV, I mean, I just don't want to do that.
No, but I will say there is one thing. So I am a big advocate for public radio, public school, things that are accessible to maybe people of lower incomes. And so I'm very pro radio in the sense that it's a great way during like emergencies and situations for people to like, people can afford like just a basic radio to hear. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like I am pro radio in that sense, but I'm not listening to it daily.
No, I mean...
Does that make sense? More for like a public service announcement.
Well, that's why I like
radio.
NPR. I really enjoy NPR. And then they have some music programming, but it's mostly talk and that kind of stuff. But the thought of listening to a commercial entity that's playing music radio, that's playing 10 songs in a loop with a commercial every 10 minutes.
And the radio's
Yeah, no wonder that iHeartRadio is laying people off because it's dead.
Yeah, and they haven't really done anything to bring their brand up. The most things they do is they host like the iHeartRadio Jingle Bell Bash or something in Las Vegas. You know what I mean, Tim? Like they do that kind of stuff occasionally, but that's about it.
Exactly.
Anyway, well, that doesn't surprise me, I guess, is the moral of that story.
There we are. Well, I feel sorry for the people who have a career in radio, but it's just a sign of the times, unfortunately.
I mean, I think that sadly that's going to be a thing for some other stuff too. So they're not alone.
Yeah, and I read a story, I think it was somewhere like Poland or somewhere, Portugal, I can't remember. It has a local music FM radio station have gone to using AI DJs and AI playlists. And it's like they've eliminated everybody. It just runs itself.
I mean, if they're not going to have the money, I mean, I'm not suggesting I mean, I see how that's lucrative. That's all I'm going to say. It's annoying, but I see how it's lucrative.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just the way things are. But I will continue just listening to the stuff I want to listen to and not getting involved in getting into someone else's playlist. And that's the other thing. I read another article where they're saying a lot of younger people, when they're exposed to FM radio, they're like, well, this is just someone else's playlist. Why can't I listen to mine?
You make a really valid point. I did used to host a radio show on Groove Shark when it was there. Like I had my own radio show that people tuned into. So I guess that was pre-podcast times. It was just an excuse for me to put my own playlist on a loop, though, and talk to people. So
there we are. Well, we have our own radio show here, but it's slightly different,
I was saying it's basically the same thing we're doing here, but I was just doing by myself and putting the songs. All right. Anyway, what's next, Tim?
Okay, so I'm going to get into this week's topic. Now, this week's topic is topical for me. I had a small accident in my vehicle a few weeks ago. It was how can we put it? A misjudgment on my part.
A little fender bender is what it was.
Yeah, I came out of somewhere I was playing music late at night in the pitch black, and I took a solid left-hand turn to use UK language, a central reservation, to use US language, a median that I was not expecting to be there, that I couldn't see in the dark. And I drove into that median. My car dipped and it whacked the front bumper. My front bumper is broken. My alignment is all off, and I've got some panel hanging off underneath, and it all looks all bent in. So it's not a good scene. However, we are insured. I had some money put aside for something else, so my deductible is paid. And, we move on.
Life goes on.
Exactly. Worse things have happened for people in vehicles. I'm fine. The only thing that was hurt was my pride.
Fair enough. All right. So how does this lead into our musical topic?
Okay. So I thought this was a long overdue topic, that we would have car songs. Songs that
I kind of thought that might be where this was going.
Yeah, songs that are related to cars, vehicles, traveling, and other such things.
All right. Are airplanes and things of that nature included in this topic?
No, it's only vehicles with wheels and predominantly cars.
All right, so we can get like school bus. Continue. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into school buses if you want to.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to start at the very top of this list with something which is incredibly obvious, and probably this is an artist we've never spoken of before, and this is Gary Numan and the song Cars.
You're right, though. I guess it really hasn't came up much in the... I always have very distinct memory of this song, though, because I know this is very niche, but somebody out there is going to get it. So I loved Sex and the City, the TV show. And they did like a prequel kind of thing where Carrie from Sex and the City was like younger, and like but it only lasted for 3 seasons and it wasn't super popular. But I just seem to remember I had like one of the best 80s soundtracks, And this song was one that played on it at least 3 or 4 times. And so when I think of this song, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Very niche, very specific, but it was just a really good playlist and like encompassed that kind of sound.
Absolutely.
So whoever did the music for that show did a great job, I guess.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he was very forward thinking, was Gary Numan. His type of synth pop that he was playing back in the very early 80s, very unique for the time, even at a time when there was a lot of synthesizer driven music. Also,
like, it was a really easy song to learn because there's like 4 lyrics to it.
Well, of course. I mean,
Tim's face was like, she's not wrong.
I was trying to think of other songs, like he had Our Friends Electric and stuff, and I was trying to think of the lyrical content, and I think you're right, but you've got to hand it to Gary Numan. And plus, he was a pilot. He spent all his pop music money becoming a pilot, and he's super into flying airplanes, apparently.
Well, then he really didn't care that much for cars. No, it's just funny because isn't there like, it just says like, here in my car, I feel safest, you know what I mean? And then it's just like the same lyric over and over again. But what I was getting at is that essence of that synthetic kind of pop music that was very predominant in the 80s is what made up that soundtrack, and I really enjoyed it. But for some reason, I remember when she like first has like her first romance in the show, this is the song, like, because they're in a car. Obviously, everybody gets it now, but
There we are.
um, I mean, like I said, it's just classic 80s pop.
Absolutely. And I think Gary Newman is still out there getting it done. I think he did some kind of
Mm,
collaboration with Tool at one point.
really?
I think it was Gary Newman and Tool, I think.
Somebody, I'm gonna Google that later because that is not who I would have imagined him doing any type of collaboration with. I
But
mean, they were kind of creative, quirky, I guess.
there we are.
Somebody out there screaming at Tim, going, "No, not Tool. It's blah blah blah."
It could be.
All right, what's next?
Okay, so the next song is very unique in a lot of ways. This is Rocket 88, which is Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats. Now, this is a song from a long time ago. This
Are you speaking English?
yeah.
I have no idea what Tim just said. I just want everybody to know, who are these people?
Okay, so the song's title is Rocket 88. And the
Okay.
artist is Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats. It was
I've
released
never heard
in
of any of this.
yeah, it was released in March 1951. Now,
Oh, well,
what's
that explains why
yeah.
it's so off.
So the
Okay.
reason this is connected to cars because it's referencing a Rocket 88, which is an
Okay.
Oldsmobile. An Oldsmobile Rocket 88 is a kind of car, which they were still making the 88 until 1999, and it's like a large, clunky Oldsmobile sedan. But
Almost all Oldsmobiles are like very large.
yeah. But if you look at like the original 50s one, it looks like cars of the 50s, with big curves and big fenders and all that kind of stuff.
Rounded.
Exactly. But what's interesting about Rocket 88, it was the very first song ever to feature a distorted electric guitar.
Huh.
And the reason being is, back in the early days of guitar, you didn't want your guitar to distort. That was seen as something you didn't want. You wanted to plug your guitar into your amplifier. You wanted to make it louder, and that was your goal.
That
Your
was
goal-
to fight the power.
Yeah, your goal was not to distort because for those people who don't play guitar and don't know this, when you hear an electric guitar and it's a big roaring sound, what you would understand is like any electric guitar sound that you hear or any like lead guitar solo that's really piercing or creamy or anything like that, what's happening in there is somewhere in that signal chain, the signal is being distorted or overdriven. And when you distort and overdrive a guitar, you get harmonics and it sounds fatter and thicker. So every time you see someone standing in front of a Marshall Stag with a Les Paul going, "Pachang," the amplifier is distorting that sound, and that is what you want. I remember when I first started playing guitar, and I was telling my mum that this amp's no good because it's not distorted. She's like, "Well, why do you want it to distort?" And I was like, "Yeah, that is the sound. You can buy
This is the sound we want nowadays, Mom.
yeah, I mean, you can buy pedals to do this now. You can do it in software. There's several ways to do it, but that ultimately the distorted electric guitar is the sound of rock, and certainly was the sound of rock and roll. But with
Yeah.
Rocket 88, what happens is that the I don't think Jackie Brenton was the guitar player. Maybe I'm have a look in the article here. It doesn't say, but we'll assume it was Jackie Brenton who was the one who was playing guitar. He
Okay.
took his little Fender amplifier to Sun Studios, which is where this was recorded in Memphis. And he had his amplifier on the back of his pickup truck. And on the way there, the amplifier fell over on its back. And when it fell on its back, it, of course, being of the day, it had vacuum tubes or valves, as you would call them in the UK. And
Yeah.
one of those vacuum tubes half fell out. It plugs in and it half come undone.
And so that created the distortion?
Yeah, so he gets to the studio, plugs it in, and it doesn't sound right. It sounds weird. It sounds not a sound that no one had ever heard before.
It sounded distorted, everybody.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
But of course, he didn't have any other equipment, so they're booked for the session. So he records the session, and there we are. Very first time a distorted electric guitar featured on a record, and that was in Rocket 88 by Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats. And many people will point that's the beginning of rock music right there by accident.
Well, there you go. I've never heard any. When you first said it, I was like, what? But they're interesting. Tim taught all of us. And if anyone wins Jeopardy with this information, he expects at least a 2% knowledge fee. I don't know what you would call it. Teaching you fee, tutoring, whatever.
And the reason I know that story is because when I last went to Sun Studios in Memphis, Tennessee, they have a display case with various artifacts in it. They have the actual amplifier in there, which started rock music.
That's pretty cool. There we go. All right, what's next, Tim?
Okay,
Where are we
so
going?
this would, we couldn't do a car episode without talking about this one. And this is from the Queen album, A Night at the Opera. And this is the song I'm in Love with My Car, sung by drummer Roger Taylor.
Wow, Tim, I haven't really thought about this song in a while. It's not one that you hear every time, like when people bring up Queen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of an obscure one. And I'm still convinced that if Roger Taylor walked beside me in public, I would never know it was him, Tim.
I probably
Would not
would.
know.
I've met him and shook his hand once, and I've seen him perform. Oh, I haven't seen. I think I've ever. Yeah, I've seen him perform a few times. But I mean, I've seen him at a couple of Queen fan club events that I went to just from the stage.
Just
I mean,
don't think I would.
he's got a big Santa beard now, but I think I probably would recognize him.
He just looks like every white male to me. I don't know. Is that bad? But I just don't feel like I would acknowledge. And it'd be so sad for me because a member of Queen just walked right past me and I just wouldn't know. I don't know why he doesn't stand out to me. Maybe it's just because, like, we've got, Brian May's got the hair. Freddie Mercury just had all kinds of distinct looks. You've got the underbite, right? But there's nothing about him that really, like, stings in my face. I don't know. Sorry,
He's got a cheeky smile. I mean, I think I would recognize him. But this song is most famous for the line, "I told my girl I had to forget her. Got to buy me a new carburetor." I mean, that's poetry right there.
I love that that's what you put it out. But who wrote this song? Which one of them wrote this one?
Roger Taylor. Now, this was actually this was a big controversy at the time because when Bohemian Rhapsody was released as a single, Bohemian Rhapsody was on the A side, and on the B side was I'm in Love with My Car. Bohemian Rhapsody was written by Freddie Mercury, and he gets the writing credit on it. The B side was Roger Taylor, who wrote I'm in Love with My Car and sang it. So, of course, Bohemian Rhapsody, has been released many times, but when it was first released, of course, it was a big hit, sold millions of records. And then who gets the equal royalty is Roger Taylor because he's on the B side.
Fair enough. I mean, he wrote a song too. Just let him be. I mean, I'm sure Freddie Mercury might have something different to say with it, but it makes sense. But like also Tim said, this one has it's got great songwriting in it. Like, isn't there a part where he's talking about like, got a feel for my automobile or something like that too? So that's poetic right there.
Got to make tracks and say, this is the end, girl. Cars don't talk back. They're just four-wheeled friends now. I mean, there we are.
That right there is quality, Tim. Cars don't talk back.
They're just four-wheeled friends now.
That sounds like something I would write. Good on you, Roger Taylor. But I mean, in Freddie Mercury's defense, I might be a little annoyed if that got the same credit I did as like Bohemian Rhapsody, but I digress.
Yeah, I'd imagine Mr. Roger Taylor, who was seen as at the time probably still a little bit of a ladies' man, I'd imagine he probably had some kind of some kind of bad relationship with somebody, and then he went back to the studio and wrote this song about saying how much he loves his car more. I mean, I think that's where it came from.
Sounds about right. Yeah, that would be my guess too, Tim. I think you're probably right on the money there. Okay.
So, likewise, I couldn't do a car episode and not include this one. This would be musical powerhouse David Hasselhoff. And he had the song Jump in My Car. Have you ever heard this song?
I have, and I was fully expecting it to be on this episode. But why did you pick this one, Tim?
Well, I mean, this is a little bit of a dark time for David Hasselhoff. As you know, he's struggled with addiction, predominantly drinking. And this was getting towards the end of his drinking era because he got divorced from his wife, and then he met Haley, who's now Haley Hasselhoff, his new wife, who's been married to for a few years, and that's all coincided with him getting clean and sober, and things looking up for David Hasselhoff. But this was almost towards the end of that, and if you look in the video of this, he doesn't look as good as
the one with the fire in the background. That's what I remember.
And so there's lots of Hoff memes and stuff. But what's unique about this video? What is unique about this video?
Okay.
Is the video was shot in Australia.
All right. Why does that make it unique?
Because it has a kit replica in the video,
Oh,
which in itself is not terribly unique because there are hundreds and hundreds of them. Lots of
okay.
enthusiasts make and maintain kit replicas, and probably the largest amount of them are in the UK. But even still, people buy these Trans Ams, they convert them buy them pre-converted, and there's various people throughout the world that will sell you all the bits to turn your 1980s Trans Am into a kit. But
Okay.
anyhow. What's interesting is that this video has the only right-hand drive kit replica in existence.
What do you mean by right-hand drive?
Well, cars in the United States, the steering wheel is on the left.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
on the other side. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And the 80s Pontiac Trans Am was only ever made for the US market, so it has a steering wheel on the left. Now, most countries that allow that drive on the other side of the road, which have right-hand drive cars,
Yeah.
allow you to have a left-hand drive car and drive it on your roads, and that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. The difference being is this was shot in Australia, and apparently, as far as I know, it's illegal to have a left-hand drive car in Australia who drive on the other side of the road to us.
Oh, interesting. See, because like I have seen people in America even driving with, you know what I mean, technically on
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah,
Like, you could do it.
Yeah, you could bring a British car into the United States with the steering wheel on the other side and legally drive it. Or, for example, like our post vehicles we have in this country, the steering wheel is on the other side because of the way they address the post boxes when they drive down the road. But in Australia, apparently, a left-hand drive car for where they drive on the other side of the road is illegal. So the person who has this replica switched the steering wheel, which is a feat in itself, for having it re-engineered and putting the pedals
So
on the other
yeah,
side,
that
the
was
steering
only
wheel.
made for America.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And then had the dashboard made in reverse and then put all the electronics in it and all the kit stuff. So it is the only one in existence.
Interesting. Well, you guys, I learned something new. I mean, I knew that, like, people have steering wheels in the episode. I've just never heard it the way you said. So that was interesting. I have a fear, though, Tim, and you've drove on both sides of the road. I'd be so scared when I'm first learning, when it gets swapped, that I would just, like, drive it to people.
Well,
Like, I just don't know that I would handle it well.
I've done every variation.
Yes.
I've driven UK right-hand drive cars in Europe, where the road's on the other side. I've driven left-hand drive cars in the UK, and then of course here in the United States, I have a left-hand drive car which drives on the side that we drive here.
Yeah.
And there is a readjustment period when you get involved in that
Yeah,
stuff.
I just have a big fear of that.
Yeah, the worst is if you have a UK car and you take it in Europe, which is on the other side of the road. Yes, you have the familiarity of your car, but when you come up to junctions and you're sitting on the wrong side of it and you're sitting on the wrong side, it does throw you a bit.
Yeah, I'd be scared I'd end up running. There was actually Jennifer Grey, who's in Dirty Dancing, the actress. So she was in a horrible car accident. She was with her spouse at the time, who I think was also an actor or somebody famous, and and they're both American. They went to Ireland. And if you know anything about like Ireland and Scotland, they have a lot of like windy old, country roads, right? 10 middle of nowhere's roads. They're very similar, actually, if you know anything about Pangea. Me and Tim live in Virginia, and Virginia was actually connected to Ireland and Scotland during Pangea. And so that's why we have similar kind of back roads, and the greenery and things of that nature.
There we are.
Now you know,
Our
guys.
news is completely up to date, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about Pangea.
But back to Jennifer Grey. So anyway, her and her husband they were going up one of these windy kind of back roads. It was raining. It was gross. They were driving on the opposite side of the road than they were used to. I think he crossed over and he hit someone head on. And she was in a horrible car accident. And Jennifer Grey, was a dancer in Dirty Dancing. That was like, she was more of a dancer than she was even an actress at the time. And she didn't dance for a very long time because of it.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I was in the UK was in 2017, I think. And I'd lived 36 years there. And I'd lived here for a number of years, went back to the UK. And it's like these rinky-dink tiny roads with rinky-dink cars and weird furniture and roundabouts and stuff. And it's like, how do people drive here? That was a thing I thought to myself.
You're like, never again.
Oh, goodness me.
funny. But yeah, I mean, I hate to say I don't remember what happened to the guy, but I think the other person in the car accident actually, like the person they hit, either passed away or was severely injured. It was really bad.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about more positive things. What's next in our car world, Tim?
Okay, so as you know, I'm a fan of the band The Beards.
Yes, I have heard that.
And in a similar notion, because we've got a car episode, we're talking about the cars. And of course, the most vehicular of the Cars songs is called Drive.
Drive. I mean, really, they went far for that one, Tim.
I know, and this is a later Cars song. I mean, their earlier stuff was sort of new wave pop type stuff. This is probably more mainstream type pop, I suppose.
I mean, I will say that, like, who's going to tell you when it's too late? That little intro is very iconic, but you could also turn on every radio station and walk into a CVS right now and it'd probably be playing.
Yeah, during the lockdown period when I was involved with Radio Freak Jam, I actually recorded a version of Drive. And I made some videos of driving around here and made a video for it. I can't remember if I put it up on YouTube or not. I think I did. I can't remember, but yeah, I re-recorded Drive and I played the vocal line on guitar and played other stuff behind it. But it was almost 5 years ago at this point. I can't remember.
It's kind of crazy to think that the pandemic was that long ago, though.
I know. I mean,
it still weirdly feels like yesterday, doesn't it?
You blink an eye and it's gone. I mean, I remember getting those. We're here in the United States. We had stimulus checks, and in fact, the computer I'm using to record this very podcast was bought with free government money.
I mean, well, and the other thing is, like, remember when we thought, oh, 2 weeks, we'll be back to work in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and 2 years later, we're still doing masks and things are shut. And
what a weird time. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know what else to say besides, of course, you had to do the cars. I mean, you couldn't leave it off the list, Tim. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Okay, so this one, Billy Ocean. You know, I tried to start a thing where his fans were called seafarers. Didn't really work. But that's beside the point.
It's one of my favorite stories. Anyway.
But Billy Ocean, get out of my dreams, get into my car.
Another 80s. Every single one of these songs about cars is very 80s synthetic pop music.
Well, apart from Rocket 88, which is from the 50s.
That was yeah. But I'm noticing a trend here. They had a thing for cars, I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, and also a lot of these are US artists, big car culture. I mean, Billy Ocean, isn't he? He's a British artist, but
maybe you can drive his car. I guess he's gonna be out. Kidding. That's not him, guys. I was just making a joke. Anyway, but yes. I mean, I still think your story about Billy Ocean and Roanoke is my favorite story, Tim.
Yeah. When we were there and it was with the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra, and then we go along think it's just like a regular Billy Ocean gig, and then there's all these big tables like on the floor of the Salem Civic Center. And it was like lots of snooty, well-to-do people. And Hannah overheard some comment looking up at us in the cheap seats going, it's not really for them.
Who's going to a Billy Ocean concert? And that's what they think.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I don't know why, but it's like you guys were going to like the orchestra or something.
Yeah, it was because they had these big round tables on the floor of the Salem Civic Center. And it was all, people had like picnic baskets and stuff. And people was dressed up very well to do. They're sort of people you would see at these golf clubs that I play music at once in a while.
You're at the opera.
Yeah, and I said this, and there was Robin Reed from WDBJ7, which is a weatherman from our local TV station, wandering around. And I said, and then when that lady made that snooty comment, it's like, what is this?
And you're like, this is Billy Ocean. You literally, this all get out of my trees. Get it? That one, that's the Billy Ocean we're going to.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that Billy Ocean was there is that. So there was a sponsor, something to do with the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra wanted Billy Ocean to be there. So, of course, their deep pockets brought Billy Ocean over and got the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra in and then got the venue and all that stuff. And that's what created the event. But even still, it was it was a very odd scene indeed.
Still, I don't know why, but I think about that and laugh. Because no offense, but it's not exactly like Billy Ocean songs were like. Anyway, I digress. All right, what's next? They're fine. They're fine. They just don't fit the mood.
Well, the cars have been driving, and Billy Ocean's been driving around finding a person to get out of his dreams and getting into his car. And of course, after you've done a lot of driving, your car's probably going to be filthy. So where are you going to go? You're going to go with Rolls Royce to the car wash.
I was waiting for it. So, one of my favorites, there's like 74 versions of this. Tim went with the original, of course, as one does.
Of course.
But I mean, there's been versions, this version, all the way to Christina Aguilera did a version for like some kids' movie a while back and everything in between. But an iconic disco classic, really. And if those of you guys who remember, Tim, when we were doing we were talking about lockdown times. During the lockdown, when we used to do the Freak Jam Zooms, Tim took us through the car wash like twice, and I sang this song on live while he was going through the car wash.
Yeah, because when we were doing Zoom calls during the lockdown, apart from Joy, who I introduced to those folks, but the vast majority of those people were based in the UK. So, I'd moved here a number of years before. I'd lost touch with some of them. Kept in touch with some, but for me to be chatting to people every weekend multiple times was a novelty, and to reconnect with people. But also you wanted to show them what it looked like around here, because they probably have never been to Christiansburg, Virginia. They don't know what the deal is. So we were lucky that we weren't quite as locked down as other places, and some things were still open, like your Kroger pull up where you pick up your food, and the car wash and other things were still open. So what I would do is I put my phone on the window of my car and then on Zoom, keep it going on Zoom, and then go for a drive and do things I had to do, like go to Kroger and pick things up, get my car washed, all these sort of things. And I don't know, it just became a thing that I was driving around and people could see where I was going.
I just remember I sang the entire time Tim was going through the car wash on live. And that was me and Tim's little bit, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe I just remember that and everybody else muted me. It's possible. That's also a possibility. I could have been muted the entire time I was singing it, Tim. Might not have known.
But people liked it. But anyhow, that was, as I said, very, very bizarre time in human history. But at the same time, a great time, certainly for me, as far as reconnecting with people.
My other favorite one was I was on the live. It was when I was first learning the ukulele, and Ian, husband, who was on our podcast, asked me to play a song. And the first song I played was Jolene, because it's pretty easy, by Dolly Parton. And Phil, who was also on the live, was like, yeah, that was definitely an original by Joy. Anyway, those are some good memories. So anyway, moving along, nothing to do with cars.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move on to this one. This is an artist that I love. I mean, I love some of her music, but I love her attitude probably more than anything. And this is Grace Jones, and this is the song Pull Up to the Bumper.
We haven't talked about Grace Jones very much on this podcast, but you have told me many times she's a favorite of yours.
Yeah, I love Grace Jones. I mean, one, she is older. She's like late 70s at this point. She looks amazing.
But she killed that androgynous kind of thing too, though, so perfectly.
She looks amazing. She looks like she's like 45 or something. And when she's on stage, she's one thing that she does, not in she does it in Slave to the Rhythm. She doesn't do it in Pull Up to the Bumper. But she's like very tall, and she's wearing these heels that are absolutely impossible. And I said she's older, but she looks fabulous. She's really taken care of herself. She looks absolutely amazing. And then she hula hoops all the time that she's singing the song in these impossible heels. And then she walks all around the stage hula hooping. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I saw a video of her 8 months ago. She tours a little bit now. I think she lives in New York City and will play an odd gig here and there. And even in her later years, she's still doing this hula hooping, singing heels thing. And it is amazing.
Now, she was in A View to Kill, right, Tim?
Yeah. She was known. Her character was Mayday in A View to a Kill, and she was the Bond girl, if you will. Yeah,
that was Roger Moore, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's vaguely what I remember. And then I love, but Tim's right. I think her look is almost more iconic than her music, and the way she sells herself is just super cool.
Yeah, she's 76 at this point.
Jesus. Well, I mean, what? This song came out in very early 80s, late 70s.
This is an 80s song. I mean, pull up to the bumper. I mean, I love this song. I think Slave to the Rhythm is probably my favorite. Another song she did, I'm Not Perfect, I'm Perfect for You. I mean, she's had a lot of music out. And as much as I love Grace Jones, I'm probably a greatest hits fan of her, but the
Fair enough.
hits are incredibly strong.
I mean, I would agree with you with that too. I'm probably more of like the songs that were on the radio that she's known for, but
Yeah, and
that's okay.
she's famous in the UK because there used to be a chat show host called Russell Harty, and it
Hmm.
was the same kind of format as David Letterman or Conan O'Brien. It was that kind of chat show type thing.
Got
And
it.
that show was on at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. It wasn't a late night show like Letterman or Conan or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And something was, I don't know what happened. I need to rewatch it, but this is very famous. And they play this on TV blooper shows. Something was not going well with this interview. And she famously slaps Russell Harty around the face.
Well, I mean, at least she knows what she wants. I don't, I need to see that to know any more details before I can comment. That's funny. She's giving Sinead O'Connor, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Grace Jones has got a certain way about her. And I don't know. I just think she's amazing.
Well, there you go. Now we know. Tim's not really. You're right, though. We haven't really spoken very much about her on the podcast. Every once in a while, she comes up, and mostly it's just like Tim really likes Grace Jones.
Yeah, I just think she's an amazing artist, and I would say go on YouTube, find a live version of her doing a Slave to the Rhythm, and see the whole heels hula hooping thing. And for a lady in her 70s, it shouldn't be that good.
I mean, there you go. All right. Well, what's next?
Well, we've done a lot of driving, and in order
Okay.
to drive around, what do you need? You need fuel. So we're going to go with Metallica and Fuel from the album Reload.
I wondered how you were going to correlate some of these. Now, I will say, wait, you got tickets, right, for Metallica, Tim?
I have at Lane Stadium next year.
What day is it?
I think it's like a Wednesday or a Thursday or something.
Well, there you go. I don't know if we updated the people. Yeah, you did. You told the people you got tickets. It sold out really quickly, y'all. So for those who don't know, Metallica is coming to our little town, which doesn't happen very often, but me and Tim are very close to Virginia Tech, and they do the whole thing with the Metallica Inner Sandman, and so it all correlates.
Yeah, and it's a huge stadium. It's like a 50,000 seater stadium, but it's just used for US football. It's not normally used for concerts. So the fact that Lane Stadium having a concert is big news around here. And the fact I can walk to this concert from my office in 25 minutes, which is what I intend to do. I come out my office, I'll cross the road, you go through Virginia Tech campus, and Lane Stadium is right there.
Well, and Tim made a really good point as to why they don't do this more often. That stadium leaves like there's nothing going on. Like what? How many months of the year? It's only really used for 3, 4 months.
Yeah, and it's just mostly the weekends as well. It seems like it seems ridiculous to have that facility and not use it that much. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how these things work.
Well, for what it's worth, when I think of the song Metallica Fuel, all I hear is "Give me fuel, give me fire,
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me pumping up and down.
That's all I can think of. I mean, that's all I can think. I mean, you don't hear it very much, but I feel like that's a pretty iconic line.
Sure. I mean, I like this era of Metallica. This is sort of post-Black Album. There's Load and Reload. I think there's some really good songs on there. They sort of ended up getting a little more thrashy as later on into their career. But
Yeah.
sort of the post-Black Album stuff, I don't know. I like it.
This would have been late 90s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I remember hearing this as a kid, and like it was kind of, I don't know if it was like a mainstream song, but it was definitely popular when I was younger.
Sure.
Okay. But I guess that I don't know that if I put fuel in my car, though, I also want fire. That's got some skepticism for me because remember, cars run on what do they run on, Tim? Mini
Explosions.
explosions.
But you want fire because if you didn't have those sparks in the cylinder heads, it wouldn't work. That you wouldn't have your
But you
explosions.
only want a little bit. Too much fire and flame seems like too much fire and fuel is bad. You just want a
Sure.
little, just enough.
Yeah.
Also, I still can't believe our cars literally run on explosions and we just let everybody drive around in them that can pass a basic test. We're like, here, go in this giant metal box at 80 with explosions. What could go wrong?
yeah, you either have 4, 6, or 8, or 12, maybe, probably more commonly 4 cylinders in your engine where there are not even just explosions, timed explosions. And those explosions push a cylinder head down and spin something. And that's what's going on. That is what's propelling your vehicle. It is wacky.
It's just I don't know why, but like when you think about it at its core level, and you were an alien and you came down this earth, and they're like, so how do you guys make your little metal boxes go? Oh, we just explode things in them.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, seems like a good idea. What could go wrong?
Well, I mean, for the most part, you get 200,000 miles of mostly trouble-free motoring out of it.
Okay. I'm just saying it still sticks with me, Tim, as one of the strangest things.
Sure. But I mean, also, you have an electric car. What's fueling that? You're sitting on a bunch of chemicals.
There you go, guys. I mean, it's not, I know, but it's just so weird to me. And it makes you like, I know that the science is there and I understand why it works, but it's strange to me that we've left it that way, I guess. Does that make sense, Tim? It feels like there's not been a whole lot of advancements in that.
No, I mean, almost. I mean, I don't know when the internal combustion engine was developed, but you're probably at the 100-year mark or something of that
I would
kind.
think so, because it had to be early 1900s, right?
Yeah, and of course, you have fuel injection, you have engine management, you have the ability to turn these cylinders on and off, you have turbochargers, superchargers. All these sort of technologies that have come and, made your life in a car easier and more efficient and faster and stuff like that. But at its core level, it's
still the same thing.
It's the same technology of 100 years ago where you have a fuel and there's a spark and it ignites the fuel, it burns, and the gases push a cylinder down.
It's so weird to me that like we've advanced so many technologies, but that one is still basically the same. But anyway, I digress. I mean, this is a podcast about cars, so this is a logical conclusion for us to get to. We're at least on topic. But I don't know. It's just so weird when you think about it. Like that, like we all know my whole thing about light years, but we won't get into that. I could be on those topics forever. All right, what's next, Tim?
Okay, so I'm more or less 100% certain that this wasn't an electric car. This was one of these ones that's powered by explosions. And this is Prince and Little Red Corvette.
I imagine that most Little Red Corvettes, when Prince was singing this, was fueled by explosions.
Yeah, I think even the new Corvettes are internal combustion engines.
I mean, there might be one. I don't really keep up. I'm not like a car girl, so I couldn't really answer that, but I would imagine so.
I mean, I'm not into cars. Do you know what I like about cars? I like cars with warranties that are reliable. And that's pretty much my interest in cars ends there.
I just have like a background of Tim saying that and like hit to be square playing in the background. I like cars with good warranty.
And they're reliable.
Honestly, same. I just don't want that. I just don't even want to think about my car light coming on. I just want it to go. When I get it, I want to go from A to B safely, and that's all I care about.
Yeah,
rest is nonsense.
The only car that I've ever cared about that I wanted to own was a Knight Rider replica, an 80s Trans Am. That's the only thing I've ever lusted over my whole life. People look at Ferrari and people look at Lamborghinis and Ducatis and who knows what, Mustangs, fancy cars. People are into that stuff, and that's fine. I couldn't care less about that. The only thing I've ever wanted was a Knight Rider replica.
To be fair, I have no, like, I don't know. Cars are kind of like sports to me. As long as it runs, I can get there. We can do the things. That's about it.
I'm of that opinion, apart from the fact I want a Knight Rider replica. In real life, my daily driver vehicle, I want something that's reasonably new, has a good warranty on it, and is reliable.
Not in Tim's fantasy life in the real world. Tim actually has two personalities that go with his different ages. You guys didn't know that. In one world, and that's Oh yeah. And that is how Tim kind of is. In one world, he's actually an IT manager. In the other world, I think he's just a guitarist on the, like that's like his goal. And in that world, he's driving the fancy car. And the IT world, he's just driving the reliable car.
Yeah, he's right. He's driving his 2020 Nissan Altima, which currently has a broken front grille.
Only because you decided to run into a median, Tim.
As I said, I find that a very foolish act, but there we go. That's you everyone makes mistakes, and that's why you have comprehensive insurance on your vehicle.
Everybody hurts some days. All right, what's that?
Okay, so we're going to move on to Cyndi Lauper, who's currently on her end of the road tour. She said that she was retiring from performing, and this is a song "I Drove All Night." Now, this was famously also covered by Roy Orbison.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say now, one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't know about Cyndi Lauper is she is like so close to having an EGOT because she has a Grammy, an Emmy, and a Tony. And I feel like she just kind of gets forgotten in past. Like she was a fun artist. You know, people love that kind of like different sound she had during like We Are the World. And she brings out like that spark. But I think she's completely underrated because she wrote all the music for Kinky Boots, the musical.
Sure.
And she received a Tony for it. I mean, and I feel like everybody just thinks of her about like time after time and girls just want to have fun. But I really do feel that she was a lot more, I don't know, influential. And I think, honestly, I just think she was more talented than people give her credit for.
100%. And I may have spoken about this before, and this may sound ridiculous, but she's probably the person most responsible for the popularity of wrestling.
That does sound ridiculous, but okay.
Because she was on an airplane ride in the early 80s, and she sat next to a wrestling manager called Captain Lou Albano. She didn't know Captain Lou Albano at the time. You know, she's a friendly person chatting to the person next to her. Turns out that he was a wrestling manager. He was involved with Vince McMahon's WWF. Blah blah blah, and he was quite the character. This guy was quite the character. So she was making the Girls Just Want to Have Fun video. She kept in touch with Captain Lou Albano, and he plays the father in the video.
Oh, okay.
Now, this was around the time MTV was getting big. So
she won a Grammy for that video.
Yeah. She at the time she was bigger than Madonna because Madonna wasn't even really a thing. It was Cyndi Lauper was the big female star of the day. That video is on heavy rotation. Captain Lou Albano's in the video. The wrestling thing's starting to take off. And then it was like, boom, rock and wrestling connection. And she kickstarted that.
Interesting. I guess I didn't know that. Because I do know, like I said, I know she got like the Video Music Award. She got a Grammy, all that kind of stuff for Girls Just Want to Have Fun. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And at WrestleMania 1, she was Wendy Richter's kayfabe manager as well.
I'll take your word for it. I can't tell you. Tim could make up any fact about wrestling, and I'd be like, sure, I don't know.
Well, I don't like sport. I think for the most part, that is not something that I enjoy. Sport is not a thing for me. I've never been into sport. But 80s WWF wrestling is not
more
sport.
Of a show.
It's a show. It's an entertainment. It's a sideshow type thing. It's ridiculous. And I like it for all those reasons. I mean, there are certain wrestlers athletically are amazing. And as I've spoken of a few people, like, for example, there's a female wrestling team called the Jumping Bomb Angels who weren't in WWF very long. And their athletic ability and the way they synchronize their moves is absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, I mean, there is some athleticism to it.
Yeah, but I like the fact it's absolutely absurd. And it's in my chosen decade as well, the stuff that I like.
And Tim will also go to monster car or truck shows and things like that, guys, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I like monster trucks. And what are you going to do? But I don't consider it a sport. I consider it a form of entertainment.
Fair enough. All right, what's next?
Well, I think we've probably got time for probably about one more of these. So,
all right, let's do it.
Let's have a look here. So this is certainly an artist that we've never, ever spoken about on this podcast.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the band Cake?
Yes.
And, they did a cover of I Will Survive famously. Yes. And they also did a cover of Jolene as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they have a song called The Distance, which is a song about sort of racing. So I'm including The Distance on this car episode. What are your thoughts on the band Cake?
I don't really. So this song was super popular mid '90s. She's going the distance, right? That's the song
Yeah.
we're talking about. I always think of there was either it was a car commercial or it was a popular video or something, or maybe it was the music video. Were they on treadmills in the music video?
No, you're thinking of OK Go.
Dang it. Well, there was a reference to this. Never mind, guys. I'm ignoring the wrong. But I will say this is the one with the businessman running, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. I mean, this song was everywhere. I can't name one other major cake song though. Were they more popular in the UK?
They were more or less unheard of. The only reason I know about them is that on one of my many US trips before I lived here, Hannah and I always used to go to Hard Rock cafes.
Yeah.
And one of the songs they always had on rotation was their cover of I Will Survive. And that's how I know
I've heard
them.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard their covers. But I mean that she's going for distance. She's going for speed. Oh, I mean I've heard that 1,000 times over.
Mhm.
So I mean, but I would kind of make them think they were one-hit wonders outside of that, really.
Yeah, I think they have a cult following. I think people like them and know who they are. I don't know if they're still going.
Well,
but
I got their video confused with a whole nother band, so that says a lot about me.
yeah, OK Go are the ones who have those very elaborate videos. They had the thing
Yeah.
with treadmills, and then they had one doing the zero G flight inside out and
That
upside
was
down.
them. You're right. Okay, I know what you're talking about
And
now.
there's another
Okay.
one where there's like a huge explosion, but then they slow it down, and it's all very delicate about all these things that are happening. It's very clever stuff.
I mean, it was interesting. I remembered it for some reason, though. I guess because the song's about distance in my mind, and he's talking about like the starting line and thumping, made me think of running, which in turn made me think of treadmills. So, I'm real smart up here, guys. There's a lot of knowledge in this brain. Gonna mess it up sometime. All right. Well, what do you have for the people? How would you like to end the episode, Tim?
Okay, so firstly, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, please drive safe out there.
And don't hit medians.
If you're thinking of if you live in a country that drives on the right-hand side of the road, and you're thinking of turning left out of a moose lodge at 1 a.m., just make sure you really know what you're doing before you do that. That's a little piece of advice for you from the No Name Music Cast. But also
Seems very specific, Tim.
yes, but also be incredibly kind to everybody. The world needs kindness. Be kind to everyone that you meet.
Exactly. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tonight.